Good day, New York. Welcome to A Journey Through NYC Religions Television. I'm Tony Carnes, your host. Currently, Ukraine is under a fierce attack from Putin and his Russian army. We've all were disturbed by these headlines that we saw just recently. There are several 100,000 Russians and Ukrainians here in the city, and they are in an uproar, mostly upset against the Putin and his attacks. The whole city is anxious because of the virus and because of this war. But you know what? Where there is ashes, we know in this Lent season that there comes beauty. And that is what's happening in Ukraine today. There is a school of iconographic art, a new type of iconographic art in Lviv, Ukraine. They point us to something eternal, assurance in God, a long-term perspective, a beauty that arises out of the ashes. This morning we have Father Kenneth from the Church of the Holy Redeemer, who has made a point of collecting and thinking about this art from Lviv, Ukraine. Welcome to the show, Kenneth.
Hi, Tony and Brian. Good to be with you.
You know, I know that you're in contact and with these artists. I'd like to first just start off with a personal note. How are they doing in this war? And are they continuing their art while the war is going on around them in their country?
Not Tony. They're not only continuing their art, but they're trying to ship their art to people. I've encouraged people on social media to follow them. Almost all of them have Instagram accounts. I've given those links to those on the posts that I've done on Instagram about their work to pray for them. And if you're able to, buy their art, whether or not they're ultimately able to ship their art to to you or not, it's supporting these artists and the work that they're doing and this moment that they're experiencing in Ukraine. And I've heard from people who have purchased iconography from Ivanka Demchek, who's one of the artists who has an Etsy store you can get her icons through. And she's in communication with them saying, I have your icon ready to go, but the shipping services aren't picking up on a regular basis like they typically are. So
Well, we'll include a link to the store and
yeah.
places that people can reach out to support these artists and purchase their work.
And this school is, that town is on the border of Poland. And so they're not experiencing a lot of warfare right now, but they're doing a lot of volunteer work with the refugees that are streaming in from the east. And the school of iconographers has come out of this town that's on the border of Poland.
How did you come in contact with them?
I just started seeing their images on social media. First Ivanka, and then Christanya Kevchek.
Ivanka Demchek.
Ivanka Demchek, yes. And apologies to these artists if we're mispronouncing either the name of their city or their last names, but we're doing our best. And I saw Christanya Kevchek's work, and then Christanya Yatzniak's work. And then it became maybe 6 months later. This was in 2020. In 2021, I started realizing these painters are all attended the same school of sacred art in Lviv, and then I started seeing, it's a movement. And there's an article in Image Journal from about 4 or 5 years ago about them. And there is a gallery in Lviv, however it's said, called Icon Gallery, which
Icon Art, right?
Icon Art, right? Which also it's a gallery in Lviv, where you can see this work on display?
I would also tell our viewers in New York that you can visit the Ukrainian Art Museum, and there's some Lviv art also at two churches here in the city, St. George's Catholic Church, and also icons from Lviv at the Ukrainian Orthodox Cathedral of St. Vladimir. And I and by the way, the Ukraine Art Museum is brand new. They've built a magnificent building and display there, and I really recommend you going to it. Kenneth, how? Let's go in and look at some of the art and get a feeling for what this is about. And if you could tell us about it, and also, you might wonder, how is this particular pieces that we're going to see is relevant to us handling our life during this wartime situation.
Yeah, so I was really intrigued in encountering the school, and Ivanka. This is an icon by Ivanka Demchek, the first
And
of the
fantastic.
artists that I encountered. She calls it Hidden Life, and it is a depiction of Jesus learning to walk. You see Joseph there on the left, and Mary with the outstretched arms, waiting for Jesus to.
That's very unusual to paint Jesus learning to walk in an iconographic piece.
Yeah,
Have you run across something like that?
no, no, I have not. And all the details of the laundry that's hanging in the craft table, and Joseph with his drafting work there, and she these artists are very theologically I mean, they have an understanding of the life of Christ as both depicting both the humanity of Christ and his divinity at the same time. So they really understand a lot about the story of Jesus and the Christian idea. These iconographers are also largely Byzantine Catholics, Greek Catholics within not Orthodox. So they come from an Eastern Rite Catholic background, but
Are
they're
they?
paint
There's a
icon.
large Armenian
Yeah,
a quarter in Lviv. Are they part of that group there?
I don't know if any of them are Armenian by background, but that's certainly a possibility. But I know that the majority of them are Byzantine Catholics. This is another work by Ivanka. This is her depiction of the baptism of Christ. I love it for many reasons. Of course, there's the window, the tear in the sky, the opening in heaven, the voice. We hear the voice of the Father. This is my beloved Son. The Holy Spirit descends and rests upon Jesus in the form of a dove. In these ancient icons, John stood on the bank and and baptized Jesus by pouring water over his head. But Ivanka has Jesus almost in a prone position in the river, as if he's lying in state in burial, with his hands folded over his chest, and the water almost shrouds him like a burial cloth, and of course the angels on the opposite bank. And but I love how the whole thing is aqueous, if you will. It's water. The hills look like waves. It's just in her icons. There's just water everywhere.
Is this what is this a paint acrylic or uh,
Um,
regular tempura or
this is
what?
tempura, right? And this is
Amazing texture
yeah,
she gets from
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. Um, that this and she has. I mean, she has many works like this. And this is Ivanka with her husband Arsen, who is also an artist, a well-known artist, and Arsen Bereza, and their son. And they, along with all of these artists, we're praying for because their nation is in peril, and so are they, and their countrymen.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then there are
This
quite a few women in this movement.
there are. This is another a female artist who I really appreciate. Her name is Lyuba Yutzkev. She has a number. She has multiple works.
And
Um,
by the way, for our audience, if you want to look her up, it's like Lyuba,
yes.
Lyuba, and then Yatskiv,
Yeah.
Lyuba Yutzkev.
Yeah, and again, just an amazing use of traditional, two-dimensional iconography, especially a lot of focus on the face. But here, the angel directing them, you know, to Egypt out of. But she's done something that a lot of these icons don't do. The icon of the departure to Egypt, she leaves the tragedy in the icon. Back in Bethlehem, many boys die.
Down at the
Um,
bottom, we see
Down at
this.
the bottom, and we see, the woman weeping over the loss of the son, Rachel weeping, and so it's just really powerful. And this is Layuba here working on an icon.
Wow.
Uh, Go ahead, Tony. If there's anything you want to say about any of these, feel free to jump in. I was just gonna go through these icons. Transfiguration is a major theme in a lot of this art. This is a piece by Christanya Kevchek, and of course she's depicting Christ there with Moses and Elijah, representing the law and the prophets
But what's amazing
and the
about it, it's
apostles.
very ash-like.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
darkness.
dark. It's dark. I mean, the cloud is a kind of darkness that descends.
You know,
But
this is almost the piece for the current situation.
yeah, yeah,
You know, the Christ in this darkness, it's Lent, there's ashes. The people that are asleep down below are not on a white pallet, but are on a black one,
yeah.
sleeping on something that's been dirtied by ashes.
And
And
crying out to God.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, this is a very
fervently.
powerful piece. And the coming down is almost like it's almost metallic, it seems like, or something overpowering coming down behind Christ.
Yeah. Obviously, here again, this is the son of my delight. Listen to him. And Moses and Elijah fade from view, and only Christ remains. And it's the uncreated light of heaven that shines not on Jesus, but from him, illuminating his garments. And, this, of course, the Transfiguration is a revelation that death, of course, is not the end of anyone, but
What's the trans? You might tell some of our viewers what is the transfiguration? What is that?
What is it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's when they went up on Mount Tabor and Christ was revealed in His majesty. The glory of Christ as the human God was revealed to them. The light, the uncreated light of heaven, was shining from Him, and they enter the cloud and they hear the voice from heaven. And it's a moment in which apparently death is no longer has a hold on Moses or Elijah. They are once again embodied, and it's a reminder that resurrection is the end of all things, not death. And this is the artist Christanya Kevchek, and she, along with the rest of these artists, is in peril. I
Have you heard from her specifically or
I
from
have. I've heard from all of them that I'm showing you today,
what
and
do they say?
well, they're busy volunteering with refugees, doing their art, helping secure the city, against the potential attack. Yeah, I've got pictures of them in, like, those yellow or orange gowns, smocks that they put on when they're out, working emergency work type of things.
How
Um,
do how do you address this war in your church setting?
how do I address it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, the church is opposed to aggression, and we want to. The church has always been committed to nonviolence and nonviolent resistance. So it's not a passive thing, but actively opposing warfare. And in this case, a pretty clear aggression. So we're praying for justice. We're praying for people. I actually crafted a prayer um, uh, specifically for this moment. And we're praying for that the violence would be over. That angels would lend aid and protection. That those are trying to bring protection and relief be shielded. That justice be done for the dead. That those are traumatized would be healed. And those who are bringing the terror would be visited by angels and converted to the cause of human flourishing.
Now I noticed that you put up a reflection on Facebook that looks at the face of the children of this war as if they are icons of God. Am I right about that?
Um, well, the prayer starts out in the faces of the children of Ukraine. We see your image, God, and it is bloodied. That's the beginning of the prayer. Yeah. So, of course,
Let's
when we look at
look
any human being, we're looking at the image of God. So,
now. Then I'd like to go back to the art for a moment, but
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
you particularly have an interest in art. Was that always an interest, or and were you always yeah, well, how did you become, how did that did
Well,
you always have
when I,
that interest,
when
or
I was young, I was a painter.
sure you're a
Um,
frustrated artist?
but no,
I'm joking.
I've always been interested in art. But I have not painted in my adulthood. No. It's a long story, but I actually had a an accident in which I lost this capacity. But anyway, uh, this icon is called Mystery Supper. It's of course about the Lord's Supper. The Greek that's in the circle around the chalice is "This is my body, this is my blood." I love it because it has the disciples reclining at table in a circle with Christ breaking the bread.
This is a very unusual Last
Yeah,
Supper painting.
yeah, it is. Yeah, in that that it's not it's not vertical or horizontal. I'm sorry. Long table. It's
It's nice, yeah.
round. Yeah. And I have a lovely picture of him and his wife, but somehow transferring this from photos into the PowerPoint, we lost it. This is the work of another woman. This was, by the way, Dennis Tim Chevshin. And this is the work of Christanya Yatzniak. And this is the moment where Christ is being nailed to the cross, affixed to the cross. And the soldiers that are doing this are almost depicted as human, but also sort of demonic, right?
Yeah, devilish, yeah.
Yeah, and
Like something out of a Hieronymus Bosch painting.
yeah. I mean, she has many images. What's interesting about about Christanya is that she, and this is her friend who's also one of the members of the school. Her name is Alina Rubentyets, and they do these large icons for churches, not just smaller, images that you can buy, but they do these massive projects. Look at this, what they did in this church.
Mm.
Painting ceilings and of course, surrounding, in the Orthodox tradition and Eastern Byzantine tradition, they put up these icons, so that they're surrounded by the saints, the cloud of witnesses, and the scenes from the Gospels and their worship. And so it's beautiful. This iconographer, his name is Sergey. He's older than the young. Most of these are young folks. He's about 10 years older. Went to the same school. His name is Sergey Rekevyek, and he does these Christ Pantocrators, Christ the ruler of the world. These Pantocrators, throughout Ukraine, and other places, on the sides of roads, on the sides of
Oh,
barns, on the sides of buildings. So he's a very public artist.
what's his name again?
His name is Sergey Rekevyek.
Yeah, caveat. Yeah.
Again, and I hope I'm not murdering their names, but we do appreciate. And this is Sergey with a smaller version of a Pantocrator, and beautiful. This is the final icon that I wanted to share with you. This is, of course, the moment where Christ appears to the 12, and Thomas is present 8 days after the resurrection, where Christ says, look, I'm not a ghost. I have flesh and bones, as you see, and reach in here, Thomas, and touch the wound in my side, and understand that I am alive again, embodied and alive.
You know what is interesting about this painting is each of the figures have they're sort of in a different space, a different reaction. It reminds me of Arthur Schick, who was an artist that painted painted a scene of the Passover supper, where in Jewish tradition, there at the Passover supper there is different sons. There's the foolish one. There's the one that's playful. There's the one that does evil. And he has each one of them looking in different ways at different places in their own space around
Yeah,
the table. And that reminds me, if you could go back to that one,
yeah, yeah,
that reminds me of that they're in a different space, and you have Thomas who's touching Christ's wound or coming close,
yeah,
and you have some of the guys on the left are watching it, but others are watching at the audience or in the distance.
yeah, 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 yeah.
It's or up above, and
Hmm.
sort of and all are sort of um, uh, stern in this situation. But and then you have one person that's sort of not so much stern, but is thoughtful. They're the young one that's next to the blue
Hmm. Yeah.
stripe down. This is an amazing, amazing combination of space, motion, and meaning. It's just incredible. You're going to go ahead.
This is the artist. Her name is Ulyana Tomkevic,
Caveat.
and she again is one of the older of the artists. Most of these artists are really young, um, just married with children, and so God bless them.
Something that what's happening in this city is this is on the western side of Ukraine. So it's really where
Yeah,
Catholicism and Orthodoxy meet.
Meat, East and West meat. Yeah.
And under the Soviet system, they closed the Catholic churches there, and that I think there's one nearby in this downtown area where there's a lot of art galleries and museums. There's the Church of the Nativity of the Holy Virgin, which is nearby, and um, but the Catholic churches didn't open up until back in 1991 or something. It was really quite late when the Soviet Empire was weakening and closing, and then finally the Catholic churches could open back up. So this art is sort of creating a sense of identity. And in fact, the art is really strong for the Ukrainians to have this sense of identity and ability to carry on no matter what is tearing apart their nation. Do you
Yeah.
see it that way?
Oh yeah. No, they're very at their work. It's like C.S. Lewis talks about in learning in a time of war. You stay at what God's called you to do in the midst of conflict and struggle. You keep your hand to the plow of whatever it is that you're called to do, whether it seems to be, directly aiding the war or not, because that's what it means for human. People are fighting for freedom. They're fighting for you to continue to do what you do. This is an icon right here on my right. It's on the bookshelf. That's Ivanka's baptism. You can order their icons. If you want to dig deeper into, you're a listener and, viewer, you want to, what Tony's saying about all this history, there is a great essay in Image Journal from Image 96. This goes back about 4 or 5 years. We'll link that article for you so you can see that. And also we can link my pieces on Instagram that where you can get it. You can follow all these artists and support them and pray for them.
Okay, we will do that. My name is Tony Carnes. I'm your host for A Journey Through NYC Religions, and we've been talking with Father Kenneth Tanner about art, the new iconographic art from Lviv, Ukraine. Thank you very much.